My name is Kyle Lucas. I'm from Agmore. We're a company in the United States. To give you a really brief background on us, we started in 1986, and that was the scientific team that started to investigate these root exudates. What are root exudates? Root exudates is a compound that's naturally produced by the plant and then released through the roots into the soil. These root exudates are the tool that the plant naturally uses to suppress disease in the soil, but then also stimulate and increase the beneficial bacteria, those that are in partnership with the plant. So what you have is you have this natural compound that creates healthy soil. So when the scientific team back in 1986 realized this compound and the value, they looked at it and they said, let's not try to manipulate the plant. Let's not try to create something better. Let's use this product that the plant naturally uses, work in harmony with the plant, and let's provide these natural root exudates to the plant when the plant is young and can't produce a very high quantity. So in other words, let's supplement this powerful compound to accelerate and amplify the benefit. So it took them about 20 years to identify different plant species and the combination of these different plant species of root exudates to find a combination that was very, very effective. From there, we've got a partner in America, but then we also started coming over to Asia. Currently, we have distributors in China, Philippines, Indonesia, Vietnam, Malaysia, Thailand, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka. We're working with a group that we're just getting started with in India. I can't remember if I missed any. But anyways, we have a very strong presence throughout all of Asia. So even though I'm from America, I'm very familiar with small landhold farmers in Asia. I'm very familiar with the growing techniques, with the challenges that face the Asian farmers, with the growing practices, with the crops, with the seasons. So we've done a lot of work here in Asia. And given that we've already got distributors and we're selling in all these other countries, you're going to gain from all that experience. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to explain to you the technology. What are root exudates? How do they work? What are they doing? Then I'm going to talk about all the research that we've done. And then I'm going to go through and talk about the benefit to the farmer and some other questions that you may have about this. So really what I want to do is, I've worked with most of the gentlemen on this side of the table for the last year. And they went through the process of doing confirmation field trials, seeing if this product is really effective, doing all the work to evaluate, and they said, yeah, this is a great product, it's very effective. Now we're at the stage where we're basically transferring it over to you, the marketing experts. So now this is the opportunity for you to see, okay, here's a new product, it's different, it's very cost effective, it's low cost to the farmer, it's visual, they can see it in the field, like that. It offers a strong yield increase, so it's profitable, and it helps build healthy soil. So many products out there degrade the soil, this actually builds the soil. 2000, no, it would have been 1999. And what we've done is, people will ask me, well, what other products do you have? And my response is, no, all we have is this root exudate product. That's our core technology. But remember, we're using actual plants for this product. It's not made in a laboratory. This isn't a chemical that's synthesized. And if you look out in nature, you've got thousands and thousands of plants. So what we continue to do is to evaluate all these different plant species. What about corn? What about wheat? What about different tree species that we grow up to a young sapling stage and then harvest the root exudates? What about broadleaf plants? We look at a very wide range. What we do is we take the root exudates from different crop species. So we have some grass plants. We have some broadleaf plants. We have some tree plants, some deciduous. We take it from a wide range of different plants, and that's intentional. We do that so that the end product is very effective on all crops. So even though that slide has a picture of Patty, This is a product that's effective on paddy, on corn, on vegetables, on sugarcane. So it gives you a wide opportunity. But what we continue to do is to look at different plant species. So our research is always ongoing. We spend about $100,000 US every year on research evaluating different plant species. When we find one that's valuable, we add it into the formulation. So over the years, our product has actually gotten better and better. And that's our position. What do? Root exudates. That's our forte. That's all we do. Everybody knows me as the neb guy because that's all we focus on. You come to me and ask me about chemicals or seeds. I don't know. That's not my business. But as far as root exudates, that's our specialty. And what we're trying to do is make our product better and better so that we have a bigger visual and we have a bigger yield increase so that we can offer a bigger benefit. Because I know from the marketing standpoint, I'm not a scientist. My education and background is all marketing. So I'm more your type of people than I am these types of people. Yes. So this is a happy day for me. Yes. No offense, gentlemen. But this is more what I like to do. Selling is fun. But I know selling is a lot more fun when you offer value and when you can bring something that helps the farmer. And that level of excitement, enthusiasm, that's what's make our job fun. Okay. So what other products do we have? This is our product, but we're continually making it better so that we're always trying to offer more and more value over time. Quantifies and describes healthy soil as soil that sustains biological productivity. In other words, it has a robust community of bacteria in the soil. And why is that important? Look at the soil on the left. That's a soil sample from a soybean farmer in America who did soybean year after year after year. And look at how depleted that is. It looks like clay. In contrast, that soil sample on the right is from a forest where you have high organic matter. It's heavily aerated, it's porous. It's going to thrive with a bacterial community. So really that's a problem because when we go into areas that have this really low quality soil, so you see plants that struggle, they're weak, they're susceptible to disease, they're under a lot of stress, and the yields go down. In contrast, when you have high quality soil, you end up with stronger, more robust plants with less disease. They recover from stress a lot quicker, and you get bigger yields. So that leads to the question, how do you create healthy soil? How do you make that change from that poor, very low quality soil over to good quality soil? In other words, how do you create healthy soil? Well, here's the answer. You look at nature. How did nature do that? Well, it was the root exudates, and that's what we're here to talk about today. So root exudates are these compounds that are released by the root. If you look in the upper right-hand corner here, that liquid coming right off of the root tip, those are the root exudates being secreted into the soil. Sometimes when you pull a plant out of the soil, you'll notice that the sand and the silt in the soil will actually stick to the root. It's because those roots have a little bit of moisture on them, and the sand will just adhere like cement to them. So what are these root exudates doing? They're doing a lot of things, but primarily what we focus on is the suppression and the stimulation factor, that whole aspect of managing or optimizing the bacteria in the soil. So what you see is that root exudates will naturally suppress the harmful bacteria and the fungi. In other words, they'll suppress the pathogens in the soil. I'm going to show you a petri dish in a minute where we had a lab in the US take neb, put it in a petri dish with a pathogen, and you can see visually how it just suppressed that pathogen. So you can see this in the lab, and I can show you pictures from the result in the field. You also have a natural stimulation. Those beneficial bacteria, those that work in partnership and help the plant realizes those, they want that partnership, they stimulate them, feed them, try to increase the population to amplify that benefit. So the plant can't reach out and push things away, but it can use these compounds to get what it wants. And it wants less disease and more of those beneficial bacteria to create healthy soil so the plant can thrive. Remember I told you about that Petri dish? Here it is. This was done by the University of Minnesota in the US, and this happened to be, I believe it was Rhizoctonia. And we did this with multiple different fungal pathogens. It all came out the same. And here you can see this is normal, just grown in a sugar water solution. And here was the same pathogen, all started the same day, and you can see that when Neb was added, it greatly suppressed that pathogen. Now this is what you can see in the lab. Here's an example of what you can see in the field. This happened to be broccoli. This was the one grown without Neb. And it's darker, it's not as healthy, and you can see that little finger-shaped appendage. That's actually club root. So here's an example where the roots didn't look near as healthy, and you actually could see evidence of a fungal disease. In contrast, if you look at the roots with Neb, they're larger, cleaner, healthier. So you can see it in the lab, you can see it in the field. So in summary, what are we talking about here? We're talking about these natural compounds, these root exudates. What do? They naturally suppress the bad and increase the good, which is to say they really optimize the biology in the soil. Now, there's a lot of products in the marketplace. You can buy bacteria, you can buy fungi, you can look at stimulants, you can look at all these different amino acids, all these different products. They all tend to stimulate. They all will add bacteria, but none of them optimize. And that's what's really needed. That's what the plant is trying to do. So we're just helping the plant do what it knows is the best thing for it. Anyways, it creates healthy soil. That's what this technology is all about. Now, I've talked a lot about bacteria, and I want to make clear, is this product a bacteria product? No. No, this is root exudates. And that's important to remember because bacteria has a short shelf life. It also is temperature sensitive. It's also photosensitive, and that's not us. There's no bacteria in this product. In fact, when we're done with the manufacturing process, it goes through a sterilization. So there's no bacteria in it. That's important because when you put it in your warehouse and it sits in your warehouse at 50 degrees, well, that's no problem. We've already boiled it. We've pasteurized it for 3 hours. So it's very, very compatible. It also means it can be added in with chemical products. So you have a farmer that's out there applying a fungicide or an insecticide, any kind of a chemical, doesn't matter. Farmers in America add it with Vapam, which is a very strong fungal product. So you have this product that's durable, compatible, easy to use, easy to store. And just to reiterate, it's not a bacteria. Now, I have no problem with bacteria. Helpful bacteria are great, but what's really important is have the right bacteria and to optimize, get less of the bad and more of the good. That's what this product is all about. So if root exudates are so wonderful, how come you've never heard of them before? Because most of the scientists around the world that are researching root exudates are really in the infancy. Go to Google, type in root exudates. You'll find hundreds and hundreds of papers, and you'll see many, many reports. So if you look at the research that's online, you'll find a lot of positive information, and they basically boil it down into a lot of things that I've shared with you, that they have this effect at stimulating. They'll talk about benefiting different things, and they'll also talk about the suppression. But there's many, many articles. Why haven't you heard about it? Because where the scientific community is now is they're going through and they're quantifying, they're evaluating, and they're saying, well, does it suppress this fungal, and does it impact this, and does it do that? And all the results they're finding are very, very positive. The difference and what makes us unique is we started that research back in '86. We spent about 20 years and we came up with a product. So now science is really catching up and putting out all this wonderful information. So this really is the future. If you look at farming today, it's kind of a patchwork of putting out a good seed and having pest protection and having nutrients. Where does the whole soil quality come in? And that's where the industry is really kind of trying to find its way. It needs a unified theory and a simple approach that farmers can use and benefit from without having to get too technical and complex. And that's what we offer. So what are the benefits? I'm going to break it down by crop. If you look at rice, what we see are more tillers. And then from those tillers, those are effective tillers. We're not putting out more tillers that die. When we do our research, we collect all the agronomic information, which I'm going to show on the next slide. But you're going to see more tillers early on. You're going to see more effective tillers that end up going through productive tillers that produce more panicles and larger panicles. And then you end up seeing a very significant yield increase. In a lot of cases, we see about 1 to 2 tons, depending on dosage and farmer conditions. So this is how we do our research. We're going to collect a lot of the agronomic factors that will drive 2 things. It will drive the yield, and it also impacts the visual aspect. Because we know that a lot of farmers, even in the US, are making decisions based on what they see. So we want to look at a study, we want to go, what is the farmer actually seeing? Here's the tiller count at 30 days, and here's the tiller count at harvest. So you can see we had more early on, and we had more that viable tillers. Yeah. Not effective, viable. Yeah. Then you can see we had more panicles. We looked at plant height, but we also, most importantly, looked at the panel count. And that's, of course, going to drive yield. And then, of course, we looked at the grain yield and how much additional tonnage we got. And this is all based on hectare. So when we do our studies, that's what we collect. Now, you can look at all our studies. You can go down and download them. Right now, the link is a little over 2,000 pages. So if you go into the office and you grab a ream of paper, that's 500 pages. So if you took 4 of those and stacked them up, that's how much research we have. So before you print it out, make sure you have a lot of paper. But this is the link. We update it after every growth cycle. We publish all the research we do. We do a lot of research, so there's a ton of information there. But here's a summary of some of the rice reports that we did. This is about 1 year old. You should probably add about another 10 reports to that. But the point is clearly made. We've seen a lot of positive responses, and we typically will see between 1 and 2 tons. We had a distributor that looked at our rice results, and they said, well, that's interesting. We're going to go do the same thing. Well, this is when Indonesia. And this company is now our distributor. But what they did is they took 12 areas of Indonesia. They went out, they did their trials. Note that their base yield was actually quite high, 7.5 tons. That's very good. So what happened in an environment where they had high yield and they used NEB? They still got a great increase. So they collected all this information and they looked at all those results and they said, this is a no-brainer. This is a great product. And so they became our distributor. During this confirmation stage where we supply samples, go out and do the trials, these are the kind of photos we will generally see. That's a great one. That was Thailand. That was a really great response. Here's Philippines. You can see that you've got more aggressive tillering quite early on. You can see you've got more roots, more aggressive growth. Here you've got more tillers, setting the plant up for more production. Here is the pictures we saw at harvest. So we're seeing all these things. The reason I share this with you is from a marketing standpoint, you should be thinking visual, because that's what drives it. That's what creates confidence. That's what's going to help you really make this successful. So we've got this technology from a technical aspect. What is happening? Well, we're creating healthy soil. We're optimizing the biology in the soil. When I say biology, I mean bacteria and fungus. And like anything else in this world, there's good bacteria and good fungus, and there's also harmful. You're aware of the harmful, those are the pathogens that cause disease. But if you can have less of the pathogens and more of the helpful, that's what drives all of this. The good news to you as marketing people is that this creates a visual impact. Farmer can see it, get excited, get confident, and then your sales base can take off. Vegetables, we see great responses here. This happened to be a tomato trial. And the same thing, we go through and we collect all the relevant information. Did we have more fruits? Yes. Did those fruits die off because they didn't have enough resources? The plant ran out of energy or ran out of food? No, it carried them all the way to harvest. Just because you have more fruiting doesn't mean you're going to have more tomatoes. If the plant runs out of resources, it will just shed off those extra fruit. So you have to make sure you're not only creating more flowers and more fruit, but you give the plant the resources to carry them through. And that's what's happening. How? Well, when the plant has less disease pressure, what's happening? It's energy the plant doesn't have to spend defending itself. It can redirect that energy into growth and yield. So when you have healthy soil, you have healthy plants. When you have healthy plants, you have stronger, more vigorous plants. A lot of the photos that were provided to me from the field trials that were done show more vigorous growth, more robust growth. What's going on?
More flowers, more fruit.
Exactly. What's happening? The plant has more energy, to the point where in the Philippines, they capitalize on this whole concept of energy, and they use a lightning bolt next to the bottle of neb, and they focus to the farmer, energize your plants. Now, when they have a conversation with the farmer, of course they can say, hey, we're optimizing the soil biology, we're creating healthy soil, less of the bad, more of the good. And that energy that you normally would have to spend defending, all these pathogens, the plant can now use in creating more growth and yield. Easy way to think about that. How energetic are you when you're at home sick? You're not. You feel terrible. You're laying in bed. You have no energy. How do you feel when you're normally healthy? Well, you feel great. You're going to be a lot more productive if you're never sick. It's the same way for the plants. You get them out of that chronic disease-ridden state, and they start being very productive. This is an eggplant example. Here's a side-by-side. This was here in Asia. Everything was the same. So the seed was the same, the fertility was the same, the pest control was the same. There was only one difference. And that's how it is in all these studies. One difference. Neb. And in this situation, look at the difference in disease. You can see evidence of disease on these control plants. Here, lack of disease, more aggressive growth. Exactly what I was telling you before. Less disease, more energy, healthy plants. Now, here's the caveat. Here's the thing I need to be clear on. Is this a natural pesticide? No. No, it's not. A pesticide, remember, is something the farmer typically uses reactively. Farmer goes out to the field and goes, ay, 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 I've got this disease. And he goes to the chemical store and he gets, some product and he applies it, and that helps knock out the disease. That's not how you use neb. Neb is something you use all the time, every crop cycle, to create healthy soil so that you have healthy plants. Stronger, healthy plants are more able to resist disease. Yes. But what if the disease pressure is very high? You're going to get disease. This isn't magic. This is science. But in these cases where the disease comes in and the disease pressure is maybe moderate, you're going to see that. So we don't go to the farmer and say, this will eliminate disease. No, 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 no. In fact, we typically don't even talk about disease. I'm telling you so that you understand what this product is doing and how it works, and so that you have an understanding of the science behind all of this. When we talk to farmers, we just talk about the benefits in simplistic terms. If we're talking about paddy, what's this going to do? You're going to have more tillers, you're going to have more panicles, you're going to have more yield. And then if you want to get into the technical aspects, you have that background. But from disease, I just want you to understand what's going on. But we don't recommend you sell on it. Why? Because if you make that a selling feature, and then there's a disease pressure that comes in that's very strong, it's going to get disease. But a lot of times this is what we find. When I go and visit my distributors, universally, every one of them has told me the same thing. Every one of them. Oh yeah, we see less disease. We see less disease. And so we use that, we would call that icing on the cake. In other words, we don't say, listen, you're going to get less disease. We tell the farmer about you're going to have stronger, more vigorous, more healthy plants that produce more tillers and make more yield. Then the farmer comes back to you and he says, hey, when I used your product, I saw less disease. Well, that's wonderful. That's great to hear. So you had more yield and less disease. This must have been very profitable. Oh yeah, it's very good. So let them tell you. You don't tell them. That way there's no risk for you. We like to under-promise and over-deliver. That way, from a marketing standpoint, we always win. Assuming the disease pressure is light to moderate. Yes. If the disease pressure comes in and is very, very strong, well, this is not magic. It will get disease if it's very strong. There's one other thing, and these are the two areas that are pretty much open frontiers, if you will, open opportunities in agriculture. Stress and disease. How does the farmer manage disease? How does the farmer proactively try to manage disease? Rodexidates. When it gets difficult, use chemical. How does the farmer proactively measure stress? Okay, we were talking about climate change. We were talking about we have longer cycles now between, the rains are expected. Oh, the rains are delayed. Oh, it's hotter than it normally is. All the plants are under this stress, this pressure. How do you manage that? One way you can manage that is to use Rodexidates and create healthier soil and stronger plants. If you look at this picture, this is from our China distributor, and they transplanted the seedlings, and you can see those with neb popped out of that stress condition. This is transplant shock, of course. And when they had neb, those seedlings popped right back out. They were stronger, they were healthier. They went right back from shock into healthy, vigorous growth. And so here's an example, a visual example of helping that plant overcome that stress. How? Well, what's happening? You have healthier soil. You have healthier plants. You have more vigorous plants. That's what's going on here. No, most of those are going to be foliar because foliar is and we'll get to the application recommendations in a moment, but it's foliar like we were talking yesterday. It's going to be most efficient. No, typically we don't do that. You can, but that's more labor intensive and a lot of farmers don't want to do that. If it's practice here, great. But in most of the countries, farmers don't want to have that extra labor. So we put it on foliar because it's easy, it's consistent with farmer practice, and it's compatible. So it can just go right in. So this is something we talked about, but let me repeat it for the benefit of everybody. So we're talking about Rodexidates that manage the biology in the soil. So the product must get to the soil, right? You can put it on through like a drench or a soil application. That's very effective. But you have to put enough on so it gets into that target area right around the roots. In other words, you're going to put more on to get it all over. Some of it will be in extra, wasted areas. What we've found is that the foliar is the most efficient, which means you can put on the smallest dosage and still get a very good response. How? Why does the foliar work? Remember, these are natural Rodexidates. They're not synthetic. They're not some compound. When you spray it onto the plant recognizes that it's these exudates and translocates them down through the roots and releases them into the rhizosphere. Right at the end of that root tip, remember that slide I showed you earlier that had the liquid coming off the roots? Right at the end of the root tip is the most biologically active portion of the whole rhizosphere. And that's where those are released. So in other words, when you do a foliar application, it puts the neb exactly where it needs to be, which allows us to put on a very small dose and get a very big response. So this was an application of foliar at transplant. That's what happened. It got down in that rhizosphere right away, and bang, it had an impact. We'll get into that in just a moment. I'll go through that in a second. And it'll be easier if we look at the slides rather than just talking. So again, these are distributor photos. You go out, you do your trials, you see your side-by-sides. This happens to be Indonesia. You can see the leafy greens had a great response. And then finally, fruits and tree crops. This happened to be grapes in California. And I remember this one because I was there. And I remember talking to the farmer, and the farmer said, Kyle, you know, this sounds really interesting, but we do the best thing here. We have the best systems. We have everything on computer control. We have irrigation monitors. The plant never goes through stress. We do everything right. How is it possible that your product can create added value when we manage so carefully? These are wine grapes in California. They spend a lot of money on every acre. I'm talking a lot. And I said, you know what? I'm sure you do a great job, but you can't beat nature. There's always going to be disease pressure. There's always going to be stress conditions. It's going to be a little hotter than it really ought to be. The nights are a little too cool. There's always these challenges. And I said, let's give it a try. This is what we saw. Yeah, they don't doubt the product anymore. Look at the canopy growth. Look at the color and the size and the shear on the leaves, especially compared to this one right there. And they're doing everything right. That's in California. And then when you saw that first photo, you saw resistance of disease and healthier, stronger plants. What's that going to mean? It's going to mean more energy. When you have more energy, what do you get? You get stronger, healthier plants. Now this is what the vineyard really, really liked. They go out there and they harvest with a machine. And what they want is consistency. They don't want to go out there and do 3 harvests. They don't want to go out there and get grapes that are this big and grapes that are this big. They don't want to go out there and have some grapes that are really sweet and some that are sour. They want consistency. They want same, same, same. And look what happened. Look at the color of the grapes compared to the variety of the colors of the grapes here. Look at the size of the grapes compared to the size of the grapes. It gave them the consistency they wanted. Now, maybe this is not the scenario in Pakistan. That doesn't matter. The point is, look at what can happen when you use this new technology. This is the opportunity on the table. Finally, I'm sorry, we're going to say something? You can put on higher and higher doses, and in some cases that's more helpful. In some cases you basically just hit a plateau. In a lot of cases what that means, when you put on a higher dose, you just get to that, you just get up there quicker. So you might put on a double dose to get a bigger bang initially, but over a little bit of time, the recommended dose that we advocate works quite well. Lastly is seedlings. You know, when you take a look at commercial nurseries, can a commercial nursery use this? Yes, absolutely. In other Asian countries, there's commercial nurseries popping up that provide seedlings for like tomatoes and watermelon and peppers and things like that. So if that's the case, then this is a product that they can use to get advanced maturity. In other words, instead of a commercial nursery having to wait 30 days for their seedlings to be ready to sell to the farmer, they can do that in maybe 25 days, which means they can get more cycles selling more seed. Very profitable. For longer term industrial crops, this happens to be oil palm. This was done, that was either Indonesia or Philippines, I can't remember which. But on industrial crops on longer term, they're looking, this one happens to be, it's typically about a 12-month crop. Well, you can shave about a month off if you start early and just use neb on a cycle. So in both cases, you have this opportunity to get stronger, healthier seedlings. Commercial nurseries, advanced maturity. The farmer, what does the farmer get out of it? The farmer may not really care if he transplants his seeds in 25 versus 30 days. Ooh, but wait a minute, he gets a bigger, healthier root system. He gets a stronger seedling, less mortality. So he gets the growth benefits. The commercial nursery gets the inventory profitability equation part of it. So the nursery is a great opportunity as well.
Yes.
This happened to be grapes in Myanmar. This was during their testing phase that we just kind of went through here. Look at the fruit set on the one on the right. And not only is it much smaller, you know, you can see that's about the size of it compared to that, but notice the health. Notice the disease pressure that's on here. And when they wrote up their report and sent it to me, they told me. They said, oh, our controls were suffering from powdery mildew, which is quite common in grapes. And in this one, not so much. Not so much. There's a report from Allied, which is our, you guys are a seed company as well. Seed company in Philippines is our distributor, Allied. And they went through and did a big report on all sorts of vegetables, and then they wrote it up. And I put it on the website, and you can download it. And if I haven't sent it to you, let me know, and I'll send it to you. But you can go through and you look at the notes, and they talk about disease suppression. It kind of goes back to the health. Think of it this way. Think that you had to go run a marathon. And you either were healthy and you felt good and you went and ran your marathon, or consider that if you were cold and you had a sick and you were laid at home not feeling too well, but somebody drug you out of bed and forced you to go run a marathon. Now, in which scenario are you going to outperform, or are you going to do better? And that's kind of what's going on here. I could see the difference. It looked to me like they were healthier, less disease. So you're going to see that in the field. But again, the thing that you have to be careful of is you can't go out to the farmer and say, you're going to see less disease. Because in that scenario where maybe disease pressure is very high, everybody in that area gets disease, he probably will too. So we always use that as explanation of the technology, but just so the farmer understands this is not magic. We're not blessing the plant. You know, it's just science, and in most cases we see a strong benefit. Now, how does all this compare to all these other products? You've got live bacteria, you've got amino acids, you've got seaweed, you've got different plant growth regulators. Where does Neb root exudates fit into all of this? And this is a really simple way to think about it. Think about the mode of action. What are these different products doing? If you break it down, you typically have a few core functions. One are these different products that increase beneficial bacteria. Now, when I say biologicals, I mean live bacteria, yes, or in some cases, live beneficial fungi. Well, obviously that's going to increase the bacteria in the soil, so yes, those offer that benefit. Enzymes and amino acids don't really do much in that category, nor do PGRs, but root exudates, yes, they most certainly do. So in that modality, you've got a comparison. When you look at the suppression of the harmful pathogens, and I put bacteria, but I really mean bacteria and fungi. I didn't want to make my font size so tiny. But here you can see that's where root exudates are different. Stimulation of the plant is quite universal. So that's going to be on all of them. And this is where most of these other products, this is really what they do. Most of these other products are stimulants, which isn't a bad thing. It's just fairly limiting. And building soil health over time, that's really where we come in. So how do we fit in this whole landscape of all these different products? We have more modes of action, which means we have a larger benefit. Over time. But what we mean when we say it, when we say, well, let's be more specific. When we say that we create healthy soil, what do we mean by that phrase, create healthy soil? We mean that we're suppressing the harmful bacteria and fungi, and at the same time we're increasing the beneficial. That ratio of the helpful to the harmful is what determines soil health. Is that our definition? No. That's the definition from the United States Department of Agriculture. Remember when we started? They talked about what healthy soil is. Healthy soil is soil that promotes bacterial activity to the benefit of the plant. So this whole concept of healthy soil is thrown around. It almost has no meaning. But if we really want to be technical, what we're talking about is soil that has low pathogens and high beneficials. Okay. That's what we're really talking about. And what we do, I've talked a lot about this aspect of it because this is a lot of it. So somebody comes to you and says, oh, well, I'm using humic acid and I'm very happy with that. Well, that's great. But humic acid is a soil conditioner and a source of humates. Yes. That's good, That's going to be a food source for bacteria, so why are you seeing value when you apply humic acid? Because you're feeding the bacteria. You're also feeding the pathogens. So all you're really doing is pushing everything up. There's no selective action happening here. If you want to put out your humic acid, great, put it out. It's a very low-cost product. But we know that if you use humic acid in neb, it works really, really well. Why? Because now you're creating healthy soil. You're suppressing the harmful, increasing the beneficial. And you get all these other actions as well. So in a nutshell, why is this technology different? Because it has a more robust mode of action. You're walking into a gunfight with an assault rifle instead of a knife. That's what's going on here. Again, as I mentioned earlier, it's not a bacteria. We influence, we manage bacteria and fungi in the soil. We're not bacteria. We're root exudates. That's what we are. We're that liquid compound that's produced by the plant, and that's our product. It's that liquid product. And like I mentioned earlier, there's no storage limitations. It's not photosensitive. It's very stable. That's important. It's durable. It's compatible. You can put it in with other products, other chemicals, which makes it very easy to use. It's got that visual component. If you look at that picture, say whatever you want. When the farmer sees that, the discussion's over. So that's the thing that makes it fun. I'm going to do a follow-up presentation here. It's only another 6 slides, and I'm going to talk about the sachet demo campaign, such that you can take that product, put it into a sachet, and give it to the farmer at your sales demos and your rallies and your meetings, so the farmer can hear about this and go, ooh, this is interesting, but then he can go out and put it out and do a side-by-side comparison, because we all know seeing is believing. And that's what really gets this thing off the ground. It's got wide applicability. You can put it on many, many different crops. So you've got a product, it's just not a rice product or a vegetable product. It's got a big opportunity. So the foliar application, this is what we recommend. Why? Because it's the way to get a very good response at a very low dosage. Now, some people will say, oh, but it's much more convenient if we just blend it on granule fertilizer, because then the farmer can just apply it. Great. You just have to put more product out, which means it's going to have a higher cost. So everybody that we work with universally puts it out as a foliar, and they only use blending a soil application, which could be a drench, or it could be added to drip line, or you can blend it onto fertilizer. That can be done. It just costs more money. So that's always done, as an option of last resort. The easy, low cost, very effective way, foliar. I'm going to let Ephraim talk to you about dosage and intervals and all that, because he's got all the information and he can supply you all that data, and he can talk in local language, and you guys would be able to then take that and maybe put it into a table. But we were typically talking about 3 applications, and the standard dosage is about 90 milliliters per acre for the season. I agree, and here's how I see this really rolling out. I'm a marketing guy just like you. When I heard about this product and I got involved, I was probably kind of how you guys are. Oh, this is intriguing. I'm interested. But I'm also hesitant. And before I really got seriously involved, I went out and did a bit of trial work, and I had to see it. And once I saw it, then I see it. So here's how I really see this rolling out. Step 1 is to go through this process with the research team and confirmation and go through all that steps. Step 2 is really get marketing involved, and if I'm not mistaken, my guess is before you gentlemen really get serious and really go bonkers with this product, you're going to want to see it. I would. So the next step is really get you involved, get some product in your hand, give you the ability to go out and go do some trials, build your confidence. Once you're confident in the product, then that's when everything can really take off. So the initial order we have is small with a big allotment of free product, and this is a phase where we need your involvement. I'm not expecting you to go out and sell it to every farmer and just go nuts. Maybe management does. I don't. What I expect from you is to give it a fair trial and go out and get involved and get some experience with the product. In the same way that when Ephraim went out and did his trials, he collected all the information, he got some great photos, he got some great data. That's what you need to do. Why? Because that's what's going to build your confidence. There's a big difference when you go out and talk to a farmer and you don't know if you have any experience with the product, you're not confident. That's a much different message. When you hear me talk about the product, is there any doubt about the confidence I have in the product? God, I hope not. I've been doing this for 15 years. I've seen the product over and over and over and over. And when I go into new markets and I have these relationships, I just get more and more positive feedback. So you need to get to that point too. But here's how we're going to kind of transition and get you started down that path. And that next step is that sachet demo. And that's going to just be a process or a campaign to help get this whole thing started. And it's very simple. This isn't really complex. Now that sachet that you see up in the corner, that's just our base branding and our suggested packaging. Here in Pakistan, you're going to have a different name. You're not going to release it as NEB. You're going to have your own packaging, your own branding. So it fits with your local farmers. NEB probably doesn't mean anything to them, so you'll have your own name. But that doesn't matter. The whole concept of this sachet demo is seeing is believing. So what are we talking about? We're talking about when you have your meetings or your promotional events, the farmer gets some sachets. Enough so that he can do a trial. He can put out all 3 applications for the season. That allows him to do a side-by-side and see the difference. So for example, if he had an acre, he would treat one portion of his field and the rest of it would be comparison to have that side-by-side comparison. Then he can evaluate and he can see the difference. Now, why are we doing this? Why are we spending all this money and free product and all that? Because we know from experience it works. In fact, it works so well, our distributor in China and 2 other distributors, Philippines and Vietnam, have looked at the sachet program, and it's so effective, they've actually bought their own sachet machines, because you can get there's actually some good quality ones in China, and it's very, very low cost, and then you can just use this on an ongoing basis. This sachet program that we're talking about, I'm not talking about doing it for 1 season. I'm talking about doing it for 5 years. Why? Because it works. Now, you don't go back to the same farmer and give him free product year after year. No, no, no. He gets it the first season, he sees it, and then he just goes, oh, and he can start using it on all his field. And you just continue, and you can just build your market that way. So why are we doing this? Because we've seen it's effective. Seeing is believing, and it works. So once the farmer sees the product, he's confident, he's got that experience, he starts buying, you can go on to other groups, other farmers. You just continue this process year after year to build your market up and go from there. I could tell you, but then I'd have to kill you. Here's what I can tell you. So we own some land in America, and we also work with some farmers, larger farmers that do contract, and they grow the specific species that we want under our conditions. Anyways, when the plant gets up to a certain maturity, not grain, not where it's actually producing fruits, but when it gets to the maturity level that we know is the maximum production of root exudates, we have implements that go underground. We'll bring up the whole plant, and then we take that whole plant to our facility. We get rid of the vegetative material, the stem and the leaves. That's not what we're after. We want the roots. And then we clean it. And then it goes through a clean water hydraulic press. So there's no solvents, no chemicals. It's just massive hydraulic pressure. So technically it's the root extracts, which is the most cost-effective way to harvest those root exudates. So what is our product? Well, we started with 26 plant species. If you Google NEB-26, you're going to find videos from Vietnam. because Vietnam latched on to the Neb 26. If you go to China, you're going to see Neb. But there, they don't say Neb. The Chinese farmer and all our dealers, they just say NEB. And they say NEB really fast. But my point is, we started with 26 different species of plants. So then once we quantify, then we combine them together. We do one more final quality control. And then if we need to do anything to qualify for registration or colorant, or some distributors have different requirements. So in summary, what is this product? It's the liquid from the plant root. That's what we're talking about. So it does go through a pasteurization, so there's no bacteria, there's no fungi, it's a clean product, which helps immensely with importing and all that. But these compounds are also very durable, which is why it can sit in your warehouse at 50 degrees. No problem. If it gets combined in with a fungus or a fungicide or any other chemical, it's no problem, it's very compatible. It manages the bacteria in the soil. It optimizes the biology in the soil, but it's not bacteria. It's not a bacteria product. Think of it like this. If all the bacteria are the different instruments in the band, the different players of all the different instruments in the band, Rhodexidase is a conductor. It's the one calling the shots and making that band work in harmony to create music. If all you do is throw more instruments and more players into the band, does that make for a better band? Probably not. What you really need is you need somebody to orchestrate that band so that it becomes music. That's what Rhodexidates are. Yeah, we see great results on all crops. The key is that this is not just exudates from, say, broadleaf vegetable plants. As I mentioned earlier, we use various species, different plant types. So we have some grass plants that go into our formulation. We have some broadleaf vegetable plants that are part of our formula. We have actually some tree saplings that we grow up to a certain stage and get harvested, and they go into our product. And we did that intentionally so that we had a wide spectrum, so that it was effective on a wide range of crops. And that's what the product is. So you go out and you use it. I've shown you results on rice and corn and vegetables and grapes. I can't remember what else, oil palm seedlings. There was a wide variety of plants in this demonstration. So you can see you have a wide opportunity.